Couple seconds.
I'd like to introduce myself. My name is John Papa. I'm the president of DPS Advisors. And been doing this for 40 years. I know I look like I'm 25 years old, but I've actually been doing this for 40 years. I started this practice with my dad 40 years ago. It's pretty crazy how we've been doing this stuff. And we go out and we educate and empower people so they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. So we have a smaller group tonight. We love working in libraries like this. We work in Parsippany Library, Roseland, Livingston, Milburn, Paramus, Bergenfield. We like to educate people. Now, I know this probably isn't your first event you guys have attended. You normally, well, maybe you guys, you look a lot younger than retirement age. So we're gonna have some fun with you guys tonight. You're not getting a steak dinner, right? We're not selling you annuities. I'm gonna educate you and talk to you about topics, Social Security. We just was talking on our show about taxes on qualified plans. We're gonna talk about how to invest in the markets as you get older in your life, whether you're in retirement or about to retire, or you're retired. So we're gonna talk about a couple topics. I want you to ask questions, okay? We have a small group, so we're gonna spend about an hour. Ask as many questions as you like, okay? And we'll answer everything we can. If we're gonna get short on time, I'll say, hey, let's just hold the questions. We're gonna be here afterwards and answer anything that you have, okay? So, cool. So a couple of housekeeping things, which I always forget to do. So if you could turn your cell phones on to silent, that would be pretty good. Sometimes when cell phones go off, it interrupts the flow of the presentation. If you could turn them on silent, that would be great. Everybody got one of these sheets here, and this isn't for us to sell you an annuity. This is feedback for us to, number one, that I could write off the expenses that you guys came here and I had an event with the IRS. Number two, at the end of the night, our presentation, we're gonna offer everybody in here a time to come into our office in Roseland and just talk about why you actually came here tonight, okay? Because we didn't offer you a steak dinner. Right? I didn't give you a bottle of water. I gave you a pen, a notepad, and a piece of this paper that I'm gonna take back. And let's talk about what's going on in your financial life. Maybe we can help you. We'll talk a little bit about who we are, how we work throughout the whole presentation, why you would want to get a second opinion under a stress-free environment. So with that, we'll get going. So I'm gonna have to collect this from everybody. If you're here as a couple, only one per couple. You don't need to fill out both of them. If you're here by yourself, obviously, we'll take one of them, okay? Does anybody have any questions before we start? No? Okay. We normally play a video from Kristen doing an introduction, but we're gonna skip that tonight. This, you can't see it. The lighting in here is a little tough, but just even if the lighting was good, it's hard to read this thing. This is a compliance slide. And what it says is that whatever we talk about tonight, do not go home tomorrow and implement a strategy or a thing I talked about, or Ted talked about, or Lou talked about in your own financial plan. We only advise when we meet with you in person. So we're gonna talk in general tonight. Don't take anything that you hear that it applied to you and go do something without reviewing it or working with us and actually designing your plan that fits you specifically, okay? So you're not gonna go home and do anything you hear from tonight. And I'm being recorded, so I know I said it to you guys, all right? So do not go home and do anything, all right? So, why DPS Advisors? Why did you accept the invitation? Okay? I told you, I'm in this business 40 years. I started it with my dad 40 years ago. We're licensed fiduciaries, which means we have your needs and standard of care above ours at all times. You deserve to be working with a fiduciary. Our standard of care with clients is way above what a suitable recommendation would be. Okay, and I like to use analogies. So let's say you had to hang a picture in your house and you needed a hammer. And your current advisor from the big box firm pulls out a 20-pound hammer and sells you a hammer. That is a suitable recommendation. Cannot get in trouble for that. You asked for a hammer, they sold you a hammer, and that's it. as a fiduciary, if you get hurt swinging a 20-pound hammer, and you file a complaint with the SEC, and they investigate, and they find that I didn't ask you health questions, I didn't ask you, can you swing a 20-pound hammer, do you have any heart conditions, any orthopedic issues, and I didn't take that standard of care to a higher level, and I didn't bring you down to aisle 13 in Home Depot where all the hammers are, and find the right hammer that you can actually swing without getting hurt, I'm probably gonna get fined for that, because our standard of care is here versus a suitable broker, okay? So you should learn, if you learned something tonight, is you should be working with a licensed fiduciary. And it's really simple to find out if your advisor is, okay? All you have to do is go home tomorrow, give them a call, say, hey, listen to this guy in Parsippany. He's talking about being a licensed fiduciary. Are you a fiduciary? And if they say yes, just follow up with a second question and say, great, which kind? Because there's only 2 designations that carry the fiduciary standard. One is a certified financial planner, the other is a registered investment advisor. We are registered investment advisors with the SEC in the state of New Jersey. So if they don't answer one of those 2 designations, then they're not fiduciaries, okay? Really easy, you should make sure you're working with a fiduciary. We don't get political here at DPS Advisors. I don't really care what side of the aisle you're on, but I've been on TV shows for conservative stations and also for liberal stations, okay? Anybody heard of Fox Business? Okay, every Sunday afternoon, they do a show called The Wealth Council at 2 o'clock. This Sunday, April 26th, I'll be on that segment. I've been asked, this is my second appearance on The Wealth Council. I'm gonna be on 3 of the 4 Sundays in May on the Wealth Council at 2 o'clock on Sunday at Fox Business. I was on a show on CNBC called The Worldwide Exchange, broadcast in 90 countries, talking about retirement planning and how retirees can create yield and income from their portfolios without risking or running out of money. So I was on CNBC, I've been on Fox Business. The show you were watching before is called The Papa Report. It's on New Jersey 12 Network every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and rebroadcast at 6:30. And every other Sunday night, I'm on CW11, New York station's CW11. That show is broadcast on there. I've written articles for Benzinga, Market Watch. I also have a radio show. Who listens to the radio today? And I'm shocked how many people listen to the radio. These younger kids in our office, my daughter, my son, we're a true family-run business. They run all the analytics. We get more contacts and hits from clients from the radio show. So 2 o'clock on Sundays on WOR 710, you'll hear the Papa Report with me, Morgan Patrick, talking for an hour about retirement planning stuff. And so we have that show. I love doing that show, and we get a lot of good stuff from that show. We're licensed fiduciaries. Here's a breakdown of where our stuff is. News 12 New Jersey, which is on Optimum, it's 61. FiOS, it's channel 530. Every other Sunday night, it's CW11, that should say Sunday night. Radio show WOR. I wrote a book called Avoiding the Retirement Traps, and we're just finishing a second book. We changed the name because we found out that the Intelligent Investor was being used already. So we're gonna make it the Empowered Investor, because our motto that I started with my dad 40 years ago is educate and empower people so they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. So we have an extensive background in this field, and I want you to sit, relax tonight. We're not gonna sell you anything. We're gonna educate you, and at the end of the night, we're gonna say, hey, you're more than welcome. You wanna come in a stress-free environment. Our office is in Roseland, not too far from here, and talk about why you came, and let's see if we can help. And if we can't, as a fiduciary, I'm gonna tell you everything you're doing is great. If that's what happens, that's what happens. Okay? Fair enough with everybody? Okay, so our first topic is gonna be about Social Security. Ted's gonna talk about Social Security, and we're gonna switch to, he'll talk about here, I'll talk about taxes and qualified plans. Luke will talk about market volatility and investing in the markets. And then we'll ask any questions throughout the presentation, and then we'll wrap up, and we'll go from there, okay? All right, Ted?
Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. I've been with the company for 2 years this month now. Been in the financial services industry for about 35 years or so. As the new guy to the company, I am the lucky guy who gets to talk to you about Social Security. Now, I know it's a very important topic for most of the people in this room, whether you're preparing for it or you're already collecting Social Security. The difficulty that I have when presenting Social Security is that the Social Security Administration conducted a survey itself in 2018. They determined that there are over 9,000 different ways that a married couple can file for Social Security, and there are over 2,700 rules that govern Social Security. John asked me to talk about that, all of that in 5 to 10 minutes maximum, so wish me luck. With all of those big numbers, though, there's really two questions people have when they come to our office, when we meet with our clients about Social Security. The first question is, will Social Security be there for me when I need it? The answer to that question is yes, but. The second question always is, well, when's the best time for me to claim or to file Social Security? The answer to that question is, it depends. So you get a yes, but, and it depends, right? A lot of concrete information there. Let's start with the first question. Will it be there for me when I need it? To answer that question, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. All right, it was created 91 years ago. FDR enacted Social Security, okay? And 91 years ago, they chose 65 years old as the full retirement age. They thought 60 was a little bit too young and 70 was too old. Can anybody take a guess what the average life expectancy was for someone who was born in 1935? Anybody want to take a guess?
72.
59 and a half. So do the math there. The full retirement age was 65. The average life expectancy was 59 and a half. So they weren't expecting many people to live really long in retirement and to collect Social Security for a very long time. Here we are 91 years later. All they've done is increase the full retirement age to either 66 or 67, depending on what year you're born in. But can anybody tell me what the average life expectancy is for anyone who's born this year in 2026?
95.
It's not that high, but for women, it's about 79. For men, it's about 74. So on average, it's about 77. We all know that women live longer than men. We're not going to debate why that is in this class tonight, but women tend to live longer, right? So all they've done is increase the full retirement age to 66, 67, 1 or 2 years, but people are living much longer in retirement nowadays, all right? So what's happening? Last year, 77 million Americans collected Social Security. There are now more people between the baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, which is known as the millennials. There are now more people collecting Social Security than are paying into the system. So they're estimating, the Social Security trustees themselves have estimated if Congress doesn't take any action, by the year 2033, 2034, which is only 6 or 7 years, the trust fund that people have been paying into, if you ever look at your pay stub and you see either Social Security or FICA, people are always wondering, who's the FICA guy that I'm paying 6.25% of my paycheck to? Well, that's the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. That's the money that goes into the Social Security Trust Fund, all right? There's more people taking it out. There are more people living longer. So the trust fund itself is being depleted. They expect, if you've heard the expression that it's going bankrupt, right? Has anybody heard Social Security is going bankrupt? Right? So there are still people who are going to be contributing as long as Americans are working. People like young Luke over there and Alyssa, for those of us who are going to be retired, they're the ones that are paying into the system. So thank you guys. We'll take their money, but there's not that many of them, okay? So there's a few things Congress can do, right? They can actually, if you look up there, you'll see the Social Security wage tax on the right-hand side. Each year for 2024 is about 168,000. For 2025, it was about 176,000. For 2026, it's about 184,000. That is the wage cap that they are taxing people for Social Security purposes. So if you're making, say, $200,000, $500,000, or $1 million a year, for Social Security purposes, they're only taxing you up to that wage tax limit. So they can certainly continue to increase that limit, right? They can also increase the full retirement age. It wouldn't be unreasonable for the Social Security Administration, or Congress, I should say, to increase the full retirement age from 67 to, say, 70 for younger people, right? So they're paying into the system for a longer period of time. So we expect that something will be done, but what we do is we plan with our clients, because here's the kicker, right? If Congress doesn't do anything, the estimates are that by that year, 2033 or 2034, whatever you're already collecting in Social Security, or what you anticipate that you're going to collect, you can expect it to be paid about 80% of that. All right, so, 7 years from now, you can also expect, if you live here in New Jersey or anywhere else really, that the cost of living, John's going to talk a lot more about inflation, but the cost of living is going to go up. So if the cost of living goes up in 7 years and your Social Security is cut to 80% of what you were expecting, that's something that you need to plan for and prepare for in case it does happen, okay? So the second question, again, when can I file, right? When can I file? As everybody, hopefully you know that the minimum age you can file is 62. For retirement age, it's going to be 67 for people born now. At 67, you get 100% of what your benefit is, right? If you filed at 62, you get about 75% of what you would have gotten had you waited till your full retirement age. However, please notice at the age of 70, you would get 132% of what you would have gotten from your full retirement age, all right? The reason for such a significant bump is between the age of 66 and 67 and the maximum age of 70, they give you what's called delayed retirement credits, 8% guaranteed each year. So at a time when you're possibly more conservative in your investment profile, the government's guaranteeing you an 8% bump, at least in Social Security, all right? Please remember that there is no benefit whatsoever to waiting older than 70. So don't say at 71 or 72 or 73, I'm going to get more money. Take it at 70 if you haven't taken it already. It's also, though, it's very dependent on everyone's situation. You may have friends or family members who are recommending to you, hey, I took it at 62 years old, you should do that too. And while they may have your best interests in heart, they have no idea what your current situation is. Everyone's situation is unique. For instance, one thing, it's kind of strange but for financial advisors to tell you this, but the best person that's going to know about your longevity is your doctor, right? Like I have, my two parents are still alive at 86 years old. I had a grandfather that lived to 96. I need to plan and prepare for longevity, right? At 59 years old, I could expect another 20 to 25 years. So financially, I need to plan for that, particularly if something happens to my Social Security, all right? Are you still working before your full retirement age, right? So if you're not 66 or 67 and you are working, there's a cap of about $24,000. And if you make more than $24,000 and you report that, for every $2 above that $24,000 limit, they will temporarily withhold $1 for that, for those $2, until the day that you reach your full retirement age. If you actually are you're working the year that you're turning your full retirement age, the cap's about $64,000. So for every $3, they'll hold back $1. So, are you married? Are you single? Are you financially supporting any of your parents? They call us the sandwich generation. A lot of people that our ages are taking care of parents financially perhaps, and maybe adult children. So we're kind of getting hit from both sides. Your health, your finances, are you divorced, are you married, are you male, are you female, your average life expectancy. Everyone's situation is very unique. So that's why it's best, whether it's us, to talk to a fiduciary about when it might be the best time for you to file individually. What we're going to do with all of those things I just said, what we do want to do is at least give you an example mathematically to show you how it could potentially impact you depending on the ages that you file. And this is, we're considering all things being equal here, right? So Ron and Nancy are a married couple. Ron is 60, Nancy is 58 years old. In all three scenarios, Ron's life expectancy is 85, right? And that's the good news. The fact that you're all in the room today, I said earlier, if you were born this year, your life expectancy is about, on average around 77. However, if you're in the room, right, at the ages we're at, the life expectancy now is for women into your mid to late 80s. If you're still here, men, lower 80s. If you're a married couple and you're here, one of you should expect to live into your 90s, okay? So Ron and Nancy. Ron's life expectancy is 85 years old, Nancy's is 90. If they both start taking their benefits at the age of 62, their cumulative benefit would be about $1.65 million, all right? However, if they waited till the full retirement age of 67, you'll see that the cumulative value of the benefits is now $1.9 million. Ron's monthly benefit went from $1,900 to $3,000. Nancy's from $1,400 to $2,235. Even though it's a shorter period of time that they're going to be collecting, the bump in the monthly benefits outweighs that, and it's over, $280,000, $300,000. However, if they both waited until they're 70, life expectancy again, 85 and 90, cumulative benefits would be $2.1 million. Ron's monthly benefit is now about $3,800 and some change, and Nancy's is $2,800. So again, from a purely mathematical perspective, we just wanted you to see how collecting it at different ages could impact how much you're able to collect if you have longevity over a longer period of time. All right, so I can and I could go on all night for this. I know we have an hour to cover some other subjects. Any questions on that? We're going to be here afterwards as well. Yes, sir.
So that number of $24,000, if you're still working.
Right.
Before, where they'll hold back some of your social security.
Right.
Is that only like income at a job, or does that include investment income?
Income at a job.
Yeah, it's the job income. Right, if you're working.
Thank
Earned
you.
income, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So you can get those statements all the time from,
Yeah.
and it says, if you wait until 70, they can't give you an exact number.
Right.
Say, you will make approximately this much,
Mhm.
but does that mean I have, and it says something about working, and at the current value that I'm, what my current
Right.
salary is.
Okay.
So does that mean I have to work at the current
So
salary?
here's the thing, right? So for those of you, just to take a little bit more information, that's a great question, right? Social Security is based, they give you, if you're working full-time for 10 years, right, you get like 4 credits each year. So you need 40 credits to qualify for Social Security. What your payout is based on is, if you've been working for longer than 35 years, it's the highest average of those 35 years. So if you're working later in life and you're making, a good amount of income compared to what you were making earlier, that's what it's saying. If you continue to work at this point in time, that's what you'll get. All right, so does that answer that question? So for those of you who don't know, we used to get those paper statements, right? They used to mail them out. Now, if you don't know, if you go to ssa.gov, you can actually, it's a government site, but it's actually fairly easy to use and set up your own account. And that's where you'll get that information continually going forward. They don't mail them out anymore, but it'll tell you at your various ages how much you can expect to get at Social Security, okay? Any other questions? Hopefully, again, we're going to be here afterwards, so if you have any additional questions, happy to answer them all.
You're not gonna answer the questions in here?
Say that again?
There were like 5 questions on here.
What would you like? Well, again, we can answer if it's social security related.
How will the limited bill, act and secure act affect your taxes and retirement?
So there was like the $6,000 credit that some people received back that kind of offset some of social security. So I'd say that was the biggest one. You know, there are just, it's really, that was
That's the
the,
next topic, actually, it's taxes.
yeah, I mean,
Taxes, not
there is
social
going
security.
to be a big tax discussion.
Next.
Taxes on social security was a big thing we pushed.
Well, yeah, but that invitation states, how does the one big beautiful bill impact your taxes?
That was not on
That's
social
the big
security.
one. We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
Next, taxes are next.
Okay.
Anything else specific to the social security?
How to reduce taxation on your social security.
Yeah.
How to ensure you're not overpaying taxes on retirement income.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, we're going to do a big, the tax discussion on retirement income. I'm going to steal John's thunder, which he doesn't like if I answer those questions.
And the last one is if you sell your house after the age of 63.
Specific to that,
Well, if you sell your house after, at age 63, you get a credit if you buy another house, so the gain that you have in the house there, you can push the gain into the new house that you're buying.
Okay.
If you just sell your house at whatever age and don't reinvest it, say go to an apartment, you're gonna pay a capital gains tax.
Okay.
So what we're saying is, if you sell a house at a profit, and it's up to $500,000 in profit, you can move that to a new house purchase and offset any taxable gain. If you go to an apartment,
That doesn't count towards like a condo or.
it has to, well, the value has to be, the condo has to be pretty substantial. If you sell a $500,000 house with $300,000 in profits in it, you have to buy a $500,000 or $600,000
Right.
condo. So, yeah, you could, if you find one of them, yeah. So it could work. Okay? So that's what we're gonna hit next. We're gonna talk a little bit about taxes, okay? And, you know, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act created a lot of confusion. In the code, it's still actually being written, it's 900 and something pages long, right? Everyone hears what the politicians talk about, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on seniors over age 65, right? The bill just got announced a couple months ago, and it's not even in writing yet, and we already have a few states that are saying that they're not doing it.
Right.
So, you know, all these legislations, listen, again, I'm not gonna get political, I don't care what side of the aisle you guys are on, I think they all stink, they all lie, that both sides of the aisle. So I don't really take a grain of salt with what politicians say. It's what the law says. So if Congress enacts this stuff, and our states are abiding by what Congress says, then we can talk about how do we plan around these different tax benefits that they say we're gonna have, okay? But until that happens, it's political jargon, is really what it is, on both sides of the aisle, okay? So, income taxing you, we're gonna talk a lot about this now because how many people in this room have an IRA, a 401k, 403b, tax deferred account that you work, at work, you contributed to? How many people? Show of hands. Okay, mostly everybody except for a couple. Are you guys seem younger? Are you starting out putting in money into a 401k, 403b at your work or?
Well, we have investments.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah, we do have dividends.
cool. All right, we're gonna talk today about taxes on qualified plans, because most people have them in this room. And when you say tax deferred, that means you're gonna pay taxes later on, right? Who here in the room, well, first let me ask, are there any accountants in the room that do taxes for people? Is anybody meeting with their accountant to try and figure out how can we lower the taxable number we're gonna pay on our distributions? Does anybody do tax planning with their accountant? You see your accountant in like September, October to figure out a way to make next year's taxes lower than they are now? No? Okay, who's talking to their financial advisors? People who have tax deferred accounts. Who's talking to their financial advisor to say, hey, listen, how do we reduce the amount of taxes we're gonna pay on these distributions? Anybody doing that? One person. We typically get one or two. Yeah, yes, ma'am, you have a question?
I'm not understand any, this question, my question is, I couldn't work for 5 years, so I couldn't find a job, but each year I do the tax return. I still pay tax, I just wonder, my social security will be increased or I don't understand all the system, sorry.
Okay, that's specific to you, so what I'll do is afterwards, when everyone's gone, I'll have a conversation with you and try and clear up what you don't understand. I'll try and clear it up with you, okay? Fair enough? Okay, so where do you think tax rates are going right now? Down. You're the second guy that said that. You really think they're going down? No. Okay.
The other guy really thought so.
The other guy really thought so, and almost, we got in an argument in the thing, but he's a client of ours now, so.
When have tax rates ever gone down?
Well,
Maybe Trump's first term?
yeah,
Yeah, but you want to know something? In Trump's first term, the rates went down, and I paid more in taxes.
yeah, because they took away the SALT deduction, they took away different
Bingo.
deductions.
So, it's all
Okay.
relative.
Got it. Tax rates are not going down anytime soon, right? Our country, this slide is about a year old, it said $36 trillion in debt. We just crossed over, we're about to cross over $39 trillion. We're like 38 trillion, 900 and whatever billion, and we'll be crossing over pretty soon, $39 trillion in debt. So I told you, when I first started in this business, I started 40 years ago with my dad. He would sell life insurance to executives, I would go in and we would do 401k plans to small businesses. Companies with 20 employees, 25 employees, barber shops, pizzerias, body shops, and go and put these 401k plans in. And I would go in and tell everybody, you should max out your contribution. You're gonna be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. You're gonna get a current year tax deduction, and don't worry about taxes, that's 40 years down the road. People who have a 401k or 403b, do you remember those meetings when people would come into your office and say those things? Okay, we were lying to you. I was part of the problem. And the reason why I know that is because around 1995, I'm in this business now 15, 16 years, our clients started retiring and getting older, and nobody was in a lower tax bracket. They were all in a higher tax bracket than they were when they were working, because of dividends and rental properties, money from the distributions from those 401ks. Nobody's in a lower tax bracket. So if our country doesn't make anything to pay off the debt, the only way they collect revenue is through taxes, right? So everybody remember Ronald Reagan, right? Not as the president though. What was he before that? He was an actor. And in 1939, I believe, I should look this up, 1939 or 40, he was paid $1 million to do a Western movie. You know what the highest tax rate in 1939 and 1940 was? Let me take a guess.
40-90%.
The highest rate now is 37%. In 1939, it was 90%. That was 90. 90%. He paid $900,000 to the federal government for a movie he made on $1 million. And I think if he was here today and I asked him, that's probably one of the reasons why it got into politics, right? So if we all are in agreement that we think tax rates are going up, and we all have these, except for a couple of people, we all have these tax deferred accounts, when do you want to take your money out of tax deferred accounts? When tax rates are low or when tax rates are high? Low, right? Because who wants to take money out when tax rates are high? You want to do it when they're low. And when is that? Right now. Everyone here should be doing tax planning strategies on trying to figure out how to lower the tax rate on their qualified plans. And I'm going to go over a case with you that we were working on. I know on that TV show, I let it run a little bit longer so you can hear what the answers were, but I'm going to go over a case study for a real client on how we can do some tax planning, and you can really significantly reduce the amount of taxes you're going to pay on the distributions from this 401k, 403b, 457, okay? So, we're all in agreement, tax rates are going up. So, what are your options, right? You guys, again, I said, this is probably not your first rodeo, not your first event you've seen, okay? one thing that I learned in a lot of years I've been working with this age group of people is no matter how good a solution could be, we don't like change. You don't want to change anything because you want to do the status quo, just don't like change. And I get that, I totally understand it, right? And that's number one, you're going to do nothing. So you have three options. You can do nothing, or number two, you could do some tax planning, and number three, we can really reduce the amount of taxes you're going to pay by using, really cool strategies, but some people don't like the word annuity or insurance, so we'll talk a little bit about that. So here's if you do nothing. So you came here, you listened to us talk, and I showed you an example of a 65-year-old couple or person who has $500,000 sitting in his IRA. Is that far-fetched? You guys worked your whole life, this is the saved generation, you guys saved all your money. Unlike the younger kids who spend all their money, you guys save it. Like when we grew up, my parents, if they didn't have it in cash, they didn't buy it because they didn't put on a credit card. They couldn't afford to make the credit card payment. So if they didn't have it in cash, they didn't buy anything. They saved everything. So is it unreasonable to have $500,000 sitting in a 401k or an IRA right now? Right? That's probably accurate, okay? So a 65-year-old person with $500,000 in an IRA has 8 years to go until age 73. What happens at age 73?
All right.
Required minimum distribution. The game is over. Your tax-deferred game is over. The IRS becomes your partner, and now they want some distributions to come out so they can collect their taxes, okay? So if you do nothing, that means your IRA is gonna sit there and grow for 8 more years, and let's say it grows at 7%. Nothing crazy, right? I'm not gonna show you a 12% return, say 7, okay? Your IRA is gonna be worth $860,000 at age 73. Now the IRS says, hey, okay, partner, it's time to pay the piper. You have to take out $35,000 in a distribution. Whether you want it or not, you have to take it out. And the next year it's $37,000. And then the next year it's $38,000. And the next year it's $42,000. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And you have to add that income to your tax return and pay income taxes on all these distributions. So now, if you lived to 90, you would have pulled out $1.1 million. All those 34s, 37s, 39s, 42, they add up to $1.1 million. And let's not change the tax rates at all. Even though 17 years from now, we know tax rates should be higher. 24% tax rate, you would pay $265,000 in taxes on all those distributions. Does that, you guys understand that? Does that make sense? You pull out 1.1 million over a 17-year period, pay 24% income tax, 360,000. But the game doesn't end there, because there's still $1 million left in that IRA. So when you pass away at 90, someone's going to inherit that IRA. A child, a grandchild, whoever, they inherit that $1 million left in the IRA. They have to take out a distribution every year for 10 years and deplete the account. They don't have their whole life expectancy anymore to stretch it all out. They have to do a distribution every year for a 10-year period to wipe out that beneficiary IRA in 10 years. So if I'm your only child and I inherit your $1 million IRA, it doesn't go in my IRA account. I have to open up a beneficiary IRA account because the rules are different. I have to take out $100,000 a year. Now, 17 years from now, I'm 45 years old, probably making my prime earning years, making the most money I'm ever gonna make, 45, 50 years old, and now I got this $100,000 distribution that I have to pay income taxes on, added to my income. Fair to say that person might be in a 30% bracket 17 years from now? So if that person's in a 30% tax bracket, which is not crazy, they're gonna pay $310,000 in taxes on that $1 million inherited IRA. So between taxes for you of $260, $265, taxes to the kids at $310, your $500,000 IRA at age 65 will generate $575,000 in income taxes to the IRS that you're gonna pay and then your kids are gonna pay. That's the plan the IRS has for you guys. If you do nothing, Door number, who remembers the game, Let's Make a Deal? The young kids don't know what that game was. Let's Make a Deal. Remember Monty Hall was, I think, he was the host?
I know it now.
And in between the three curtains, you see door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. So door number 1 is you guys do nothing. You come here, you listen to us talk, and you're like, yeah, whatever, it's not gonna happen to me, but that's what's gonna happen, okay? You do nothing. Pay $575,000 in income taxes. What if I can show you a way where you'll get the same amount of distributions and then pass on the same amount to your kids, but we can cut the tax bill to $150,000? That's door number 2. What if I use some tools that you might not like, annuities, life insurance, and we can cut the tax bill to $62,000 with the same distributions? That's door number 3. So we would show you door number 1 for you, door number 2, door number 3, and you guys decide what's right for you. Between door number 1 and 2, who's picking door number 1? You can pay $575,000 in taxes in door number 1, or we get the same distributions and pay $150. Which door you pick? 2. Everybody should be saying 2, right? I mean, you should be saying 2, right? That's doing tax planning. But except for this gentleman here, no one's doing it, because their accountant's not talking to you about it, neither's your financial advisor. Well, we do. And why don't your financial advisor, why don't they talk about it? Because they can't. I have friends in this business, I'm in here a long time. I have friends at the big box firms. I ask them all the time, why are you talking taxes on your clients' IRAs? And they're not allowed to. They can only talk about accumulation and adding, make the accounts grow. They're really good at accumulation. That's it. There's no tax planning benefits. There's no health care plans. So if you people are 60 years old, 65 years old in the room, do you know a couple should expect to pay? AARP did a study. A couple's gonna pay $315,000 in healthcare costs in retirement. And that's not long-term care. That's premiums, deductibles, prescription drugs, co-pays. A couple's gonna pay $315,000, a single person's gonna pay $160 something. You have a plan for that? That's what we do with DPS advisors. We sit down with you, we educate. First of all, we find out what your situation is. Why did you come here tonight? And we didn't give you anything. I didn't give you a steak. I didn't, giving you any of that stuff. We gave you a pen and a pad. And let's talk about what you came here for. And maybe there's a way we can help. We are a second opinion. You have a medical procedure coming up. You're not going to go to one doctor for a really serious medical condition. I had back surgery in January. I didn't go to one spine surgeon. I went to 3 and got 3 different opinions, and I picked the one that was right for me. If you're not getting second opinions on your assets, you're making a mistake. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no stress, no obligation. You should be all checking off on that sheet of paper when you hand it in. And, hey, yeah, you know what? I want to talk about tax planning. We feel it's so important, I built a website for it. If you remember on the TV show, it's dpstaxbill.com. You can run your numbers on that site. That's how important it is, because for most people in this room, it's your largest investable asset, is your tax-deferred account. Okay, did I say anything that confused anybody? Have any questions about that? I explained it pretty good? Okay, good. And you guys have a brokerage account, not to say specifics, but there's ways, capital gains, things like that. There's tax loss harvesting. Just make sure you're doing that kind of stuff, that we would look at and review and make sure you're doing it that way to pay the least amount of taxes on that. So there's options there as well. Good job. Okay. Ted talked a little bit before, mentioned it, inflation. And we call it the hidden tax. I want to spend a few minutes on it. Who really thinks inflation's running at 3%? We live in North Jersey, I don't know. You go to Capitol Grill for a steak, a year ago it was $15 cheaper than it was today. Gas is crazy. Now I know what's going on in the world. Gas prices are nuts, but they've been crazy for a while. Cost of goods, cost of going to the supermarket. Who really thinks 3% is the inflation rate? Does anybody agree? I think it's way more than that, right? It's way more than, they're not telling us. That 3% rate doesn't count living expenses. It doesn't count all the main things that we do, right? So I think it's at least, I'm gonna say double digits, but let's just say 6%. You guys know that if your expenses are $4,000 a month and inflation rate is running at a 6% rate, your expenses are gonna double every 8 years. So if you're in retirement, now we're on fixed income, right? Making a set amount of money, Social Security, maybe a pension, distributions from my IRA, and that's it. And your expenses are, say, $4,000 a month. 65 years old, you lived to 90, that means you have 25 years to go. At a 6% inflation rate, that $4,000 a month, 8 years from now, is $8,000 a month. 8 years after that is $16,000 a month. Then the final 8 years, it's $32,000 a month. You're not, you're buying the same stuff. It just costs a ton more. So if you don't have an increasing income plan strategy in retirement, so that your income, regardless of where it's coming from, if you have assets, you have 401k, IRA, whatever, we can build an increasing income stream throughout your retirement life so you can combat inflation. You can combat healthcare costs. Who's doing that stuff? Anybody in the room doing that right now? That's what we do every day. We have one gentleman. That's great. That's what we do every day. So you come into our office, say, hey, yeah, I want to come in a stress-free environment. Believe me, I promise you, you're not going to be forced to do anything. I started this business. I'm in this business for a really long time. You know, we're checking you guys out like you're checking us out, and we'll educate you, and I'll show you if we could do something better. You have a decision to make, and I don't care what decision you make. If you want to come with us, that would be great. If not, all right, take our information, and hopefully you can improve upon yourself, but we're not going to force you to do anything. We're just going to give you a second opinion. That's all we're going to do, okay? Luke's going to talk a little bit about market volatility. Luke, we gave you 12 minutes. We went too fast.
That's more than usual.
We gave you 12 minutes.
I usually
Get him at like 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, I usually call this segment the market volatility 2-minute drill. That's usually the amount of time they leave me, is about 2 minutes to talk about it. But it's we have some more time. It's just as important as the other two topics, right? Market volatility and how it's going to affect you as you're approaching or already in retirement. Because investing in retirement is totally different than investing while you're working. When you're working and you're receiving an income, you can afford to be aggressive with your investments, and that's how you should be. But when you're getting closer to retirement and are about 5 years out, that's when you want to start, like when you're about 5 to 10 years out, that's when you want to start thinking about and shifting to a more conservative portfolio. Once you're in retirement, you really need to worry about market volatility because you can't afford to take a loss in the market and having to take money out of your IRA in the RMD. Because once you're 73 and RMDs are due, and if you haven't done any Roth conversions, that RMD doesn't care if the stock market is down and you still got to take money out by December 31st. So I have a couple examples of how a loss could affect you. So if you lose 10% of your portfolio, it's going to take 3.6 years at a 3% return to get back to even. At a 6% return, it's going to take almost 2 years. In year 2022, both stocks and bonds were down. Has everyone here at some point or another heard of the 60-40 balanced portfolio? 60% stocks, 40% bonds. They work inverse of each other. That portfolio was down 25% in 2022 because the concept that they have, that stocks and bonds have an inverse relationship, is actually a lie. Bonds are affected by interest rates. And what happened in 2022? The Federal Reserve started raising interest rates, bond values went down, and that 60-40 balanced portfolio got crushed, right? Down 25%. If you lose 20%, and you're now in a conservative portfolio because you're in retirement and you shifted to a conservative portfolio, it's going to take you 7.5 years at a 3% return to get back to even. And with the RMD being taken out on top of that, it's going to be impossible to do. It's okay. We'll look at another example. So if you have a portfolio with $100,000 and you lose 10%, that leaves you with $90,000, and you need an 11.1% return to get back to $100,000. You may think that because you lost 10%, that a 10% gain would get you back to even, but unfortunately, not how it works, right? Because now you're working with less principal, so you need a higher return. If you lose 25%, that leaves you with $75,000, and you need a 33.3% return to get back to 100,000. That means to get that kind of return there, you'd have to take a crazy amount of risk. And, at this point, right, as we're getting closer to retirement, or as we're already in retirement, do we really want to be that risky in our portfolios? I would think probably not, right? This is kind of when we get to the relaxing and enjoying, the retirement years, right? So we don't want to ride that volatility roller coaster. So you need to pay attention to maybe how your portfolio is set up before you retire. Maybe you have a 401k, you have some type of account like it, and you haven't really talked to the plan administrator, and you don't know how the investments are really set up. Make sure, you get a handle on that. And we just have a couple more charts I want to show you. I know the text is really small here, so it's tough to see, but this chart is called the Lost Decade. It's showing a $1 million IRA from 2000 to 2009 with 4% distributions taken out and sustaining market loss throughout the period. At the end of the period in 2009, the person's left with $480,000. And that's just in that 10-year period, right? And that's why market volatility and how you're invested in retirement is very important to the people in this room. Because when you have to take an RMD, right, that's that 4% rule, and in a down year, it's going to affect your principal balance, and it's going to absolutely crush you, right? So let's say it's year 2022, December 31st, you're 73 years old, recently retired, you're in that balanced portfolio. So in year one of retirement, your portfolio went down 25% to $750,000. And you still got, since you're 73, you still got to take 4% out, like the IRS says, so that's another $40,000, bringing it down to $710,000. And that's just in year one of retirement. So what happens if you live 25 to 30 years in retirement? Because people overall are living longer nowadays, right? People are healthier, living longer, so you need to be prepared for that. And the point here is your investment philosophy in retirement needs to be completely different than your philosophy while you're working. And there's one more slide I want to share with you guys. So when we talk about risky and conservative investments, what exactly do we mean? We show this chart and we have this discussion with everyone who comes into our office for the first time. We call it the 3 investment worlds, or the 3 investment buckets. Right? It's different investments spread across three different worlds. There are 3 different buckets there in blue. Right? On the left, you have your safety and guarantees. These are investments where your principal is guaranteed, your interest is guaranteed, and the term, right, the length is guaranteed. What types of investments are in this bucket, right? CDs, government bonds, fixed annuities, and then you move over to the hybrid bucket, right? These investments have principal protection, but there's potential for higher growth when you link them to a market index. And typically the term is, the term as well, right? These are equity-linked CDs. These are fixed indexed annuities. And then on the right, you have the risk and potential growth bucket. And this is where nothing is guaranteed, right? But you're going to have the highest potential for growth here. These are your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds, real estate investment trusts, your variable annuities. All right, so notice how you have stocks, bonds, and mutual funds all in that bucket on the right. We see a lot of people come into our office and they think they have a diversified portfolio because they show us all their statements and look, I got the stock portfolio, I got mutual funds, and I got bonds. But they all fall under that same bucket, right? They all have the same type of risk. So a truly diversified portfolio has money spread across all 3 of the buckets, right? You have some in the safety bucket, some in the hybrid bucket, and then some in the risk potential growth bucket. And when you guys take advantage of the free, stress-free appointment with us, we're gonna go over this sheet in a lot more detail with you guys and explain everything. So make sure you do that. And I'll take any questions if you have anything about market volatility or investing as you're getting closer to retirement. All right.
Did a pretty good job.
Thanks.
So typically what we see, like Luke was just saying, is you come in, if you're gonna take us up on our offer of having a free second opinion, is you'll bring your statements in. And you bring in that big box firm statement, whoever you're with, doesn't matter. And all your money is sitting in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Now, if you're younger, that's fine. Okay, you should be really aggressive in your portfolio. If you're younger, you should be doing Roth IRAs, those different things. We'll tell clients to their kids and their grandkids, they should be aggressive. But like Luke pointed out, you can't afford a loss when we're in retirement, a significant loss. So what we do and how do we create that increasing income stream is we'll bucket out your money, so you'll have it all in that Wall Street bucket. We're gonna take some money and put it in safety. So that your first 5, 10 years of income is gonna come out of the safety buckets, so it doesn't matter what the market's doing. But I'm not abandoning the markets because I need the markets. But I'm gonna use them in buckets 3 and 4 so that I know I'm not touching them for 10, 15 years, and they're gonna grow, and then I'm gonna turn them into increasing income 15 years down the road. And then the fourth bucket could be for 20 years down the road. So when you bucket the money out and truly diversify your portfolio, you sleep at night. You don't have to worry about market losses. I don't have to worry about 2022 when the market went down 25%. Because I'm not touching that bucket for a really long time. So I don't make any panic decisions. Part of my job on your team is to eliminate emotional and panic and stress decisions by putting your money invested properly for what we're trying to accomplish. So you guys come in and take us up on our offer. You're gonna, for my first question, or our first question to you is gonna be, what are we trying to accomplish? And then we're gonna say, well, what do you have in place right now to try to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish? And that's where we're gonna look for inefficiencies. And as a fiduciary, if you have really good stuff that meets what you're trying to accomplish, we're gonna tell you that and say, you're really good. I wouldn't change anything. That's what you're gonna get when you come to sit with us for an hour or so in our Roseline office, okay? So what we're gonna do now, we'll wrap up. I'll answer. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions about what we talked about? Social Security, taxes on qualified plans, market volatility. No questions? Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're offering everybody here in the room